Hello, everyone. We are here with the three hosts of the Radical Reimagining project that you have seen out on Twitter over the course of the last month. This is the first month of our project. We've been doing some writing together, and we've decided to kind of add a new feature to the work that we're doing. It's all a work in progress, but we've invited Tom Archibald here this morning to talk with us a little bit about the first month. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Good to see you all.
All right. Well, I know people can, look up our Twitter bios and figure out who we are, but do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe why you're here this morning with us?
Yes. Thanks, Libby. I'm a faculty member at Virginia Tech in our Department of Agricultural Leadership and Community Education. My main passion is evaluation capacity building, helping folks who don't think of themselves as evaluators to do more evaluative thinking and reflective practice as they try to do good work in the world around community development, things like that. I also work with a project funded by USAID doing positive youth development and youth entrepreneurship in Senegal and West Africa. So sort of how I spend my time. And I live in Blacksburg, Virginia. That's where I'm joining you from today.
All right, thank you.
Very cool.
Tiffany, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so we're just curious, what made you think that this project was worth your time? Like, what brought you to be interested in where we are with Radical Reimagining?
Yeah, I think it's something that floats in and out of my consciousness throughout the years, really the length of my career, this nexus of and the need to really question and maybe take down these artificial barriers between personal selves, our whole humanness, and our profession. I think that's particularly true in something like evaluation, but true in so many other realms as well, including teaching, social work, any of these professions and fields that are trying to do something really meaningful in the world. So it's ironic that I think this conversation doesn't happen more. So I really thank you all and appreciate you for doing this. And I think, especially in these difficult times, it's especially necessary. But it's something really that's floated in and out. Sometime maybe 6 months ago, I just sat down and started writing down some values on some paper. And then your posts helped me go back to that and actually type it up so I could have it more present. It also made me think back to a time, it was probably a year ago, March last year, in Senegal, when we were wrapping up a training on positive youth development, and one of the participants, Aminata Dia, had, my colleague Fatimata Khan had just finished leading us in a guided reflection, which was cool because it was this whole realm, different group of folks, and from faculty members all the way to grassroots community leaders. And then afterwards, Aminata said, you just operationalized or really put into practice what I want to have as the core of all of what she said, which is, in her case, it was a joining of her spiritual beliefs with her professional work. And that literally made me cry in the instant, because that's something that I've thought about off and on over the years, whether it's reading Homer, whether it's thinking about different mentors I've had who do that. And I think whether it's a spiritual thing or just a values-based thing, that's an experience that I had a year ago, which then your posts and your work around this initiative brought back to me. So that's sort of why I said, okay, I've got to get on this train.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. That's such a beautiful response. That really, really spoke to my heart. Like, and you mentioned the difficult times that we're in, and the title of our blog, Radical Reimagining, I think we've all had this sense that we really have to reimagine how our work happens, how our world functions, how our systems function, and I think that's really what we're hoping to do. Is like, I think we had this like organic response to our first month of posts, right? Of like, just see where it lands. And I wrote mine before all the happenings in Minneapolis this week, but that's really where my heart is at. Is that that's the space where we need to start from, of really reimagining just how things can be, and then how we can be as individuals. Yeah.
Yes, I think on that note, and I can tell that some of your answer to the prompt kind of shined through and some of what you just reflected. But if you would indulge us maybe and just share maybe a little bit more directly your response to the prompt, which was an opportunity to share how you'll be more human in your professional practice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I think it boils down to just a focus on values, which are, that's one of the most ironic things about working in program evaluation, is that values are ostensibly at the heart of it, and there's been more and more good writing going on about that. But sort of how we put values, how do we think about values in the philosophical and even methodological sense in evaluation, but then do we stop short of thinking about ourselves as evaluators, as people, our value system, and how easy it is for there to be a disconnect between our personal value set that we espouse or we claim, and then the actual work that we do in the micro and macro way. So that's what I sort of focused on in my first response. And it's a challenge to ourselves. It's a challenge to myself to think about all the times when. So as a faculty member, I do mentoring, I do teaching, and in my facilitation work, in my research, am I manifesting the personal, spiritual, philosophical values that I claim? Like, so for instance, vis-a-vis what Minneapolis is raising for us, if I claim to want to be anti-racist, how does that manifest in my teaching, my mentoring, my evaluation work? And so that's what more recently on Twitter, in part in response to a few other folks, I'm trying to be clear, and it's one thing to say it and then it's another thing to do. But if we don't have the space and the time and the accountability, especially as a white person in relation to other white folks, to keep ourselves accountable, to not just, give out nice liberal platitudes, but to actually show in action. And I don't think I'm there yet, but at least what I'm trying to do now is to be more explicit with myself and to put it out into the world so that there can even be accountability, and about values like anti-racist work, values of true equity and justice, when so many others are now really doing a great job of showing how, it's obvious, but it bears stating that the systems in which we function, whether it be, in my case, higher education, international development, the philanthropic nonprofit sector, that they're, by being capitalist, neoliberal, white supremacist structures, if we just act neutral, then we are obviously part of the problem. So it takes, by putting our own values forward and trying to understand how we can function in these systems and compartmentalize our own values, our espoused values, without putting them into practice, which is super hard, but that, I feel like that's what you all are calling us to do, and it's so needed right now. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you've led us right into our, the area of our next prompt, right? So June 1st, we'll have a new prompt out. We had all agreed, Deven and Tiffany and I, before this conversation, that the prompt would center around values. How do we get clear about our values? How do we make sure that they are explicit in our communications with people and not implicit? I think, in conversations I've had with people, a lot of us haven't sat down and really written out our values and like taken the time to really think about them. I went through the process of building myself a website last year, and as a process of doing that, wrote my values, and it was a huge step forward for me. I was kind of knew them in my head, but the process of, again, writing them down and making sure they're operational in your life is so critical. And so I think that's the direction we're headed for, asking people to talk with us about in the month of June, and really taking a big leap forward in how that shows up in our work.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe sticking them behind my laptop so I can see them. It's we need constant reminders of that too. But no, I'm really looking forward to for June then. So yeah.
Nice. Nice. Tiffany, Deven, anything else you want to add?
Gosh, I think that it's interesting to think about how humanness and values seem to almost be equated to each other in this conversation, right? I just want to see what you guys think about that. Like, where's your head at when you see that it literally feels like it's a one-to-one in some ways? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that is that it's easy to equate the two, but I think it's also important to separate the two in some ways as well. So I mean, I think that might be the area of my next post, because that was my immediate reaction, right? Is sort of like, you know, our values are learned, right? We get them from someplace, and they are separate from who we are at our core, right? So our values can change and evolve, but living our, you know, being intentional about our values is related to our humanness, that we can reflect on those things, grow up with those things wherever we are, that work isn't a separate space. Yeah.
Well, and
Deven?
I think just reflecting and even stepping back a little bit to what you had shared, Tom, is feeling like this this need to respond, but to respond like immediately with action. And I think that it requires this step back to really reflect on those values, to state those values, and to use that as the accountability and the reflective mechanism that I think is that catalyst to then move us into really intentional work and action. And I guess I find a little bit of relief in hearing what you shared, because I'm you know, having not shared a response after what are very emotional events this week. I've just been in this place of not knowing how to respond yet, and I think that this conversation is timely around values, and I'm looking forward to having that conversation and seeing it really float some things to the top that need to be talked about.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, our goal was to keep this short and sweet, and that feels like a nice place to kind of put a bow on this for this month. Tom, we so appreciate your time and your, you know, drawing attention to this project. I think it's a conversation we want to draw, you know, evaluators into, a conversation we want to draw other people in higher ed into. It's what I've been lovingly referring to as the information economy. We all have some work to do around bringing our humanness into our work. So thank you. Have a wonderful
very much.
rest of the day.
Thank you.
And thank you all for leading this and bringing this space out to the open, and I look forward to continuing to be part of it. So thank you so much.
Thanks.